Shalom. I think every Jew knows about the Shma, Shema Yisrael, probably the most famous verse in the Torah, the most famous prayer in the Jewish tradition. We say it twice a day, beginning with the evening prayer, because in the Jewish tradition, the night comes before the day, and then saying it again in the morning prayer. But in terms of the enumeration of biblical commandments, there is only one commandment to say Kriyat Shema. So saying just the morning prayer or the evening prayer, saying Shema at night or in the morning, is sort of a half mitzvah, which doesn't really count for anything. And the question is this simply a technicality in the way we count biblical commandments, or is there some deeper meaning joining together the two recitations? Our beloved and still greatly missed teacher, Rav Soloveitchik, taught that they're actually complementary, that the evening recitation is a simple declaration of faith, of allegiance to the idea of there being one God, whereas in the morning prayer, it's more in the realm of eschatology. It's thinking about the Messianic era in which humanity as a whole is drawn to the belief in God. The Rav finds support for this in the blessing that precedes Kriyat Shema. In the blessing that precedes Kriyat Shema in the evening, there are no requests. And of course, it's not appropriate for there to be a request when we're simply declaring our belief in God. But in the morning, when we're looking forward to the Messianic future, then it's the time to make requests relating to the nature of the Messianic future. And if you look at that longer morning blessing, you see that there are actually quite a few. I always thought of them as things that we could use now, such as Kein Techadenu Tlamdenu, we're asking God for help in learning and understanding. But then we go on to much more bolder requests. Maher Vaveilenu Baracha V'Shalom. Bring peace quickly, not please now, but please immediately. Again, in keeping with our traditional vision of the Messianic future as the time when knowledge prevails over ignorance, and therefore peace prevails over war and injustice, and blessing prevails over the opposite. So these are really, indeed, eschatological prayers. But the Rav also finds support for this in actually Rashi on the verse Shema Yisrael. I don't know how often we actually read Rashi on that verse, but Rashi's interpretation is totally eschatological. Rashi reads the verse to say, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu. The Jews should say, look, God is now our God, but in the future, Hashem Echad, He will be the one God of the entire universe, of the entire world. Everyone recognize Him. And Rashi cites in this, again, the prophecy of the Navi, of the prophet Zephaniah, who said, us then in the Messianic era, E'apoch el ha'amim safa brura, I will turn to all the nations in a clear language, lekro kulam, that all would call out b'shem Hashem, in the name of God. So that, according to the Rav, the evening recitation is the pshat, the simple meaning, which simply declares that there is one God, whereas in the morning, we're saying it in according to Rashi's eschatological messianic interpretation, in line with the verse in Tzvi. Now, the Rav has a somewhat similar interpretation of the long list of blessings, of benedictions, of prayers in the Shemona Esrei, the centerpiece of each of the three prayers that the Jew makes every day. They begin with blessings of an individual nature, the individual needs of knowledge, forgiveness, health, economic support, economic well-being, and then it moves on to the Kaba Shofar Gadol L'Cherutenu. God should sound the great calling of the shofar for the ingathering of the exiles, ending with the blessing Mekabetz Nidchei Yisrael. God is gathering in all of the dispersed Jewish communities from around the world. And the Rav says, logically, what should follow upon that? It should follow the Messianic era, the reestablishment of the kingdom of the house of David, and the building of Jerusalem. But instead, The Shema Esrei moves on to Hashiva Shofena Rishona, to reestablish justice, true justice. And the Rav says the reason for this is that the reestablishment of justice is a precondition for the Messianic era, as the prophet said, and we recite this on Tisha B'Av or on Shabbat Chazon, I don't remember. Tzion b'mishpat tipadeh. Zion will be redeemed by justice. And justice, I remind you all, is something that we are commanded to impose. We don't simply wait for God to come and wipe out all the evil people. We have to institute a true system of justice, not people with various trying to impose all sorts of odd and, in effect, disgusting ideologies, because that's their prerogative as people to wearing the robes and sitting on the bench. But true justice, and it is imperative upon us to restore justice, and only after that has been done can we think of the reestablishment of the kingdom of the house of David and the Messianic era. Now, there's one more point which I want to make, and it's extremely important. I don't recall that the Rav made it anywhere, but I would expect he would agree. It's commonly felt today, and you can read this all over the place and hear all sorts of YouTubers saying it, that somehow it's a mitzvah or it's something the Jews are supposed to do things to hasten the Messianic era. Nonsense. The Maimonides, Rambam, never ever says that we should be doing things in order to hasten the coming of the Mashiach. We should be doing what is right because it is right, to reestablish justice, to put an end to iniquity, to put an end to corruption, to put an end to the ramming down people's throats of alien ideologies and immoral so-called values, are things that we must do now, and must do because they're the right things to do. God will bring the Mashiach when it's appropriate. That's not our issue. It's not for us to do. It's not for us even to think about. My revered teacher, Rav Kapach, said, the Mashiach will come b'aseh hadad, when we're not thinking about it, because we're too busy doing the things that we're supposed to be doing. And so I think that's the point to be left with. We do what is right because it is right, and we do it now because now is the time to do it. We do what is imposed upon us. We have to do what we are told to do. Tzedek, tzedek terdov. And then, with regard to the rest, we can certainly rely upon the prophet who said that at that time comes, az epoch alamim safa bura, dekro b'shem Hashem, dekro kulam b'shem Hashem. Thank you very much, and Shabbat Shalom.